Welcome to the Psychedelic Integration Podcast. I'm Sinclair Fleetwood, a ceremonialist, plant medicine guide, and psychedelic integration coach, and I help soul seekers create lasting transformation so you can get unstuck, embody your power, and be authentic AF, all with plant medicine as your guide. If you're ready to go beyond visuals and get a vision for your life, if you know the end of your ceremony is just the beginning of your expansion, then this show is for you. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome. Hey family, welcome to the show. I'm Sinclair Fleetwood. I want to invite you to our new season of retreats here in Asheville called Resonance. We offer 4-day getaways where you come, join the family, get away from your regular life, get out into nature, connect in a ceremonial container, and expand, heal, surrender, remember all of the beautiful things that invite you home to your own authenticity, your own power, your own joy, and help you feel better in your daily life. Why should you come to Asheville? Well, in case you forgot, which most people have, back in the fall, Asheville got real smashed up by a hurricane. And this place here in Western North Carolina is so special and so beautiful. The mountains are amazing. The nature is fantastic. It's a really special place full of beautiful people, art, so much beautiful art, so much delicious food. There's a huge craft beer scene here if you're into that kind of thing. We have so many farmers markets. It's like ridiculous. There's so much vibrancy here. And there's a lot of suffering here in this moment because of what happened with the natural disaster. And it took out big parts of our economy. The Biltmore Village, which is the little village, shopping district around the Biltmore, which is one of our biggest tourist attractions, got completely destroyed. We lost countless hotels and restaurants and shops and stores. Our River Arts District was completely drowned and erased. And this was the most vibrant arts district I've ever seen in a city. It was huge and beautiful. And so there's so many artists here who are trying to rebuild and find out how to move forward. And Asheville is open for business and we need your support. We need your help. And we're inviting our community to come join us for a retreat and stay a few days. Stay a few days before, stay a few days after, make a little trip to Asheville, spend some money here, go have some beautiful food, go to the salt spas, get a massage, do whatever it is that you like to do. Get out into nature, go on some hikes, enjoy the Blue Ridge Mountains, and help support the resurrection of this amazing, amazing community. The Appalachian people are so full of resilience and creativity and inspiration, and it's such a privilege to live here and to be part of the rebirth, the coming back home, and we're going to do it better. And we would love for you to be part of it and to support the local economy as well. So if this sounds interesting to you, maybe you've been wanting to connect more in community, you can find out more. Go to my website, sinclairfleetwood.com/events. You can book a call with me. That's the first step. We have a little chat and see if it's a good fit for you. And I let you know all the details and the pricing and everything like that. So let's take a deep breath together. In through the nose, out through the mouth. You know that we're going to have a little bit of a tough conversation when I make you breathe at the beginning of the podcast. But it's important. These topics that we come to that feel more heavy are really important because sometimes this work brings up stuff that feels heavy. If it doesn't, you're probably missing something. Some of the stuff is heavy and some of it, you need a little reframe. You need a little mirror to look in, to see yourself more clearly, right? And so today I want to talk about forgiving yourself. This idea of self-forgiveness, something that comes up so much on this path, the psychedelic path, it brings it up, this deep-seated guilt, regret, and shame that we carry when we become more self-aware and we start to look back at our lives and we see these things that we're carrying that maybe we didn't even know we were carrying. And the medicine opens the door and invites us to let all of those things rise to the surface. Everything comes up in these altered states because they are rising to be healed. And I believe that forgiveness is not something that you need to achieve in yourself, but something that you surrender to, something that you stand and kneel before and really come to a deeper understanding of it. And I think it's a multi-tiered process with self-forgiveness. When I first started on this path, before I ever started working with medicine, I started becoming more spiritually connected, and I started going to yoga, and I started meditating, and I started journaling, and I started doing some of these things that we do when we're starting to learn how to know ourselves better, right? And I remember I was just getting out of a relationship that it was my first relationship in sobriety. And I had a relapse inside of that relationship, and it was an abusive relationship. And I, at the time was like a card carrying feminist. I was a really empowered, proactive, like politically active woman with very strong opinions and a strong sense of self. And, I'd been sober for a few years, and I was really feeling myself. I was like living my best life. I was like doing it. And I got into a relationship, and I lost myself. And I lost myself so hard that this person was physically abusing me, and I could not leave. Even talking about it now, it still brings up twinges of just like, how did I let that happen? Like, how did I stay in a relationship where I was being so brutalized emotionally, physically, verbally, like all of these different things, and not, like, where was my dignity? Where was my power? And I was so embarrassed. I was so ashamed. I felt so guilty. I felt so appalled. It was so incongruent for me. It was like a paradox that I could not wrap my head around. Like, how did this happen? But the fact was that it happened. And I remember being on my yoga mat and feeling the deepest grief for what I had done to myself, the deepest sorrow for having relapsed because of this relationship, because of this man, well, because of me with this man. I'm not blaming it on him. And not really knowing how to move forward, but having all of this come up and just having to sit with it and realizing, like, okay, I don't know how to hold this, but I know how to set an intention, and I know how to breathe, and I know how to move my body on this mat. So I'm going to come here into this yoga practice with the intention to forgive myself. And I had that intention every class for a year. I would come to the mat and I would say, today I'm going to forgive myself. And it took me a year of holding that intention before I was able to shift it into something else. What are we really forgiving? Why do we hold on so tightly to guilt and to shame and to the self-flagellation and self-punishment that comes with it? Like, we're very puritanical sometimes with our inner critic is like some kind of like, Inquisition level punisher. It's like, you need to atone. You are a horrible person. How dare you? Even when the horrible act that you did was to yourself. So why do we hold on to it so tightly? Like, what is it giving us? This is a question I ask my clients all the time, is like, what are you getting out of this? Because holding on to guilt and shame is a subconscious way to protect us from doing it again. It's sort of like, look at but remember when you did this? Like, you don't ever want to feel like that again. So let me like throw it back in your face to make sure that you remember that you don't do it. It's almost like the internal version of like rubbing a dog's nose in its own poop when it poops in the house. It's just like, you are bad and you need to like look at what you did, right? Like, really. And no one, like, dogs don't learn that way. It's just mean. And when you think about it, like the way that you would punish a dog and shame the dog for, like, it doesn't know any better. It's a dog. It's just a sweet dog. It has to go to the bathroom and it doesn't know. We're really the same. we're like, we are babies. We're like spiritual babies, learning how to walk, learning how to take care of ourselves, learning how to behave, learning what feels good and what doesn't, learning about our own morality, learning about our own, what feels right, what is right and what is wrong, internally, externally. And often we're breaking the mold and the programming of what we were handed that gave us the system of that, because we don't agree with it and we don't align with it. So often the guilt and shame, whatever it is that you feel that you need to forgive yourself for, comes as a result of you coming back online and remembering your humanity and remembering your connection to yourself and seeing things clearly. The need for self-forgiveness comes from clarity, right? You very clearly understand that was not okay. Whatever it is. Maybe it was with you and you. Maybe it's with you and Earth. Maybe it's with you and your spouse, your child, a relationship. Maybe it was with you and spirit, you and humanity. There's all these different relationships that we have in this life that can show us something and teach us something. And we get a little obsessed with like self-punishment. And because a lot of us are just really hard on ourselves already. I talk a lot about people pleasing and perfectionism and these, high achieving and all of these kind of personality traits that we develop that really make us very miserable, but are byproducts of the system that we're in. Because we want to be safe, we want to be successful, we want to be loved. So we develop all these like quirky, crazy things that we do. And then when we can't be perfect, which we never are, we see something that we did and then we just like beat ourselves, self-punishment, unrelenting self-punishment. And it becomes part of our identity of just like, no, I don't give myself an inch. I'm going to beat myself to death anytime I mess up. And if it was something big, well, look out. I'm going to be just like super mean to myself. And I don't know about you, but that method really doesn't work for me. I do not do well with torture or corporal punishment internally or externally. I really want it to be, I'm really in a time in my life where I'm like, if it's not fucking soft, I don't want it. Like, get out. If it is not soft and delicious and beautiful, I do not want anything to do with it, especially coming from me to me. I am not going to be hard to myself. I refuse to criticize myself. I refuse to hate myself. I refuse to engage in keeping shame alive within me. I refuse to feel guilty for the things that have happened in the past. And why is that? Okay, well, I don't believe that there is quote unquote sin. We're kind of incepted with this idea of original sin, and it's always Eve did it, right? It was Eve. It's the women that did it. The evil, terrible, seductress, temptress women who took the apple and ate it and then gave it to Adam. And, original sin. I remember when I was like 5 years old, this friend of mine, this little, 5-year-old friend, her parents were religious and she was telling me about Jesus. And she's like, have you accepted Jesus as your personal savior? And I'm like, who? No, I did not come from a religious household. And I'm like, no. And she started telling me about hell, and she started telling me about how I was going to burn in hell. And if I didn't follow Jesus. And this is the first I had heard of it, but man, she struck fear in my heart. The idea that there was like a place where you would just burn alive for eternity. I mean, I didn't have that great of a grasp of like, what is eternity, but I knew that it was a long time. And I know like, I don't like hot things. So it was really scary, right? That came from her because she was afraid and she told it to me and someone told it to her. And it's like, okay, you just sort of take these things on when you're really young and impressionable. Then we develop this idea that there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And there's a code of morality, and that code is delivered to us through religion for the most part, or, the families that we grow up in, or this is right and this is wrong. And there are some things that we all agree of like, okay, as a society, we are going to agree, like, you shouldn't steal, murder is wrong, assault, rape, those things are very wrong. Doing something against someone else, against their consent, taking what's not yours. These very simple kind of like, okay, everybody agrees, we're all good, we agree, this is not okay, fine. But sin, as in like, it's not that the thing is bad, it's that you're bad. That's what sin made me feel like when I started, going to church and hearing about sin. It was, you're bad. There is something in you that is inherently wrong and evil, and you need forgiveness from God, or you will be punished for this inherent evilness for the rest of time. And all of the things that I did as a young person, kind of in church, like I went to Baptist churches. I was boy chasing there. Like I went to church because I was afraid. I got baptized because I was afraid. I accepted Jesus as my savior because I was afraid. And because I wanted to fit in and I wanted to belong and I wanted to be part of something. And my parents didn't take me there. All of the cool kids went to church. So I started going with them because I wanted them to like me. That's why I did all of it. Not because I was like, I believe all of this. I mean, I was an emotionally sensitive, empathetic child. So if an adult is telling me all of this, these big stories that they tell you from the Bible and why you should accept Jesus, like I was in it. I mean, I love stories. And I'm like, okay, like they're saying this is true. All these people here are believing this. Like it must be true. It didn't occur to me that like maybe it wasn't true. But I knew there was something in me that didn't feel aligned with it, right? What I understand now is there is no mistake if you learn. And I really don't believe that you can make mistakes. I say this all the time. You can't do it wrong. And you can't do it wrong means we always do the best we can with what we have in the moment. That's always true. I know that we're always trying to do our best. I believe that. I believe that we have our best intentions. I like to assume best intentions. I am I'm sure some people would say that I'm like a naive optimist or something where I like to look at things and say, like what is the best possible outcome? That's probably the story. I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm a positive, optimistic, hopeful person. And I cultivated that by reframing my ideas of bad and good and going through really painful things that could easily be looked at as like, wow, what a waste. You're addicted to alcohol for 15 years. What a fucking waste. Like, what a sad waste of life. Like, abusive relationships, like dead-end jobs. And like, I have burned my life down so many times. And for someone who is not connected to a spiritual path, they might look at my life and be like, wow, what a loser, But through the psychedelic medicines and through my own connection with spiritual teachings and practices, I developed my own understanding of is there sin? No, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in hell. Like I don't believe in any of that stuff because it doesn't resonate with me. And what I do believe is we are love. That source energy, the universe, the higher self, the creator loves us. And that we come here to make lots and lots and lots of mistakes because we are here to learn. We are never wrong. You cannot do it wrong. You can do it how you need to do it so that you get the learning. And sometimes we have to make a lot of mistakes. Some of us came into this lifetime and forgot really hard who we were so we could remember, so we could have the like exalted experience of remembering. And, some of the stuff that we come into awareness about that we have in us isn't necessarily even ours. It might be coming through our ancestral lineage. It might be ancestral trauma. It might be the culture around us. It might be previous lifetimes. It might be things that we are personally holding and healing for the collective, for humanity. I feel this a lot right now, this heaviness in humanity and the willingness of those of us who are on these paths to step up and say, you know what, I can hold more. I can heal this for humanity too. Like I can heal it for myself, but I'll take a little extra to heal it for humanity. Because some stuff that's coming through for me, I'm like, this is not mine. This is not mine. Like, I know that I have stuff, but like, this is not mine, but okay, it's here. So I'm going to look at it. I'm going to heal it anyway, you know? So sometimes the guilt isn't ours. The shame isn't ours. The behavior isn't ours. The belief isn't ours. It's something that we were given, but the responsibility is always ours. If you become aware of something in you or in your family or wherever, in your realm of healing, your sphere of healing, your community, your friendship circle, you know, when you become aware and conscious of something that is no longer serving, no longer resonating, it is our responsibility to heal it to our best ability. So what is the difference between forgiving yourself and spiritual bypassing? Self-forgiveness is an active, conscious, organic process of facing your emotions, of feeling your emotions, of integrating the lessons and understandings that you get, and releasing the self-punishment, releasing the criticism, releasing the need to atone so that you can authentically heal. Spiritual bypassing is a layer of defense. It's a defense mechanism that sees the guilt and the regret and the shame, sees the trauma, sees the emotions, and just sort of like steps to the side without actually doing any of the work to resolve it. Okay? So a lot of times on this path, you will see people just doing ceremony and ceremony and ceremony, like taking medicine over and over and over again, but not really taking any time to do the actual work of integration. They will just keep taking medicine, keep going to ceremonies. Maybe it turns into like a lifestyle where there's not a lot of actual deep healing work happening. It's more just trying to keep tapping into, you know, all that is blissful feeling without really letting what's going on land and getting a solid foundation in your physical body so that those emotions have a safe place to express, learning how to feel your emotions, sitting in your uncomfortable emotions. It is so fucking uncomfortable to feel your feelings. I cannot even tell you, it sucks. It's hard to feel your feelings. And maybe it's not as hard to feel like really big feelings, sadness, grief. I think the ones that are the hardest are the ones that are when you deprogram yourself and you're like, everything is beautiful, everything is fine. Do you know how difficult it is to feel stable when you're used to chaos? Do you know how painful it is to feel in a healthy, happy, bountiful, abundant life when you are used to being a chaos monkey who like doesn't have any money or love? You're a drama queen. It's like feeling good is intensely difficult when you are programmed to have a heightened nervous system awareness, when you're programmed to feel really bad, when you're so used to drama and struggle and scarcity and strife. Feeling good feels dangerous. These are the things that are hard to sit with. It's the capacity for love that you recognize that you have that becomes incredibly hard to hold. And this self-forgiveness is inviting yourself to be so soft about this, inviting yourself to be so, so gentle and so compassionate and so sweet and just laughing at just like, oh my God, I'm so squirmy right now. Like, this is really hard to feel, you know? I'm not bypassing. I'm not going around this. I'm going right through it. I'm walking right into it. I am walking into the problem and I am sitting here in the center of it and I'm surrendering to what is. I am in radical acceptance of this. Here's my shame. Here's my guilt. Here's my regret. I am feeling it, you know? Like, it's a difficult process. So it's no wonder that spiritual bypassing pops in and is like, oh, hey, you don't really have to deal with any of that shame. You can forgive yourself and go back to a ceremony. You can just keep, like, be like, you know what? I don't have time to do this right now. I'm just going to put it to the side. Like, who cares? So just the act of being willing to engage in these feelings and understandings about yourself, to look at your own shame, is so heroic. It's so empowering and it's so beautiful. And you are a super spiritual, badass warrior if you're doing this. This is not easy. This is not easy stuff, okay? And the thing about the plant medicine and the psychedelics, everybody wants the blissful experience. Everybody wants to take the pills and, tune in, tap in, drop out, whatever, and connect to the love and connect to the bliss. And that is beautiful. And it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There are lots of times where you just get such a beautiful, blissful experience, and it's so amazing. And a lot of what happens, especially at the beginning, is everything that is keeping you from feeling that love that is you. It's not outside of you. There's not some like love universe in the sky that you have to take mushrooms to get to, and then you get to like hang out there, and then you come back to the place where you're not love. You are the love. What we're doing by taking psychedelics is opening the portal to allow you to remember that you are it. You are in it. You are part of the universe. The universe is love. Therefore, you are love, right? And the thing about these plants, they will not let you escape yourself. Like, there is no way to get away from yourself. The medicine brings up the things that you're hiding the most. It is an excavator. It goes inside and it's like, here is your material. Here you go. Here's all your shame. Here's all your ugliness. Remember this horrible thing that you did that you don't ever want anyone to know about. Like, here it is. Here's all your regrets. Here's all the terrible things you've done. And it does it without judgment. It's not judging. It's just showing you. It's just showing you. You get to be the decider. You get to decide, what do I do with this? Do I put it back where it was and hope I never have to see it again? Or do you say, oh, wow, okay, here it is. I don't need to go looking for this. It's right here. It feels like a divine intervention that this has been brought to my attention. Like, I don't have to put this back. I don't have to put this in my body. It doesn't have to turn into illness or cancer or disease. I can heal this. I can release this. I can feel it. I can let it go. I can transmute it, and I can change my thoughts about it. That's it. You can, this, as my partner Ian says, you can be the tool of your own reckoning. That's what the medicine does. It asks you to be the tool of your own reckoning. What does self-forgiveness look like? Fully acknowledging what is here, what is coming up, and sitting with it. Seeing it for all it is. Seeing in radical acceptance what happened, what is, the things that occurred. Understanding deeply, compassionately, that it came to you for a reason and that it was a lesson. And that the reason is that you chose it. You needed it to be like that so that you could learn. And knowing that these lessons will keep coming in different ways until we understand them. It's like a school. It's like, okay, this is going to keep coming in different understandings until we stop judging it, until we stop fighting it, until we stop resisting it, until we heal it, until we accept it. And often that looks like seeing these parts of ourselves that we think are just the worst, maybe the worst part of ourselves was in charge and was running the show and was running around being crazy. And you look at that old version of you or that part of you, and it's hard to accept. It doesn't feel like you can love that part of yourself, but you can, because we all have it. Nobody's only light. Nobody's only the good parts. In fact, if anybody's walking around pretending just to be the good parts, I would be suspect of that person because it's not real. It's not. We are whole, multifaceted beings who have dark, we have light. We have dark, we have light. We have shadow. We have sticky parts that we want to change and we can't for whatever reason at this time. It might take a whole lifetime. You're like, okay, well, I'm not going to get it this lifetime. I'll see you next time. But what you can do is start to feel a sense of peace in yourself and allow yourself to forgive yourself if you need to. One of the things that we jump ahead is there is no need to forgive because there was never anything wrong. And sometimes that's a step too far. Sometimes we do need to forgive ourselves. And we might need to spend a year on a yoga mat saying, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. We might feel that bad. We might feel that much guilt and that much shame, and it might need to be sat with for a long time. And I did that, and later, years later, after doing, work, then I was able to say, okay, I see now that there was nothing to forgive. I see now that there was never any mistake. I see now that this was all part of the plan. This was all part of divine expression, and that I would not have the life that I have today had I not done every single thing in my life just like that. Like, now I can say that. Now I can see it from here, but I couldn't see it from there. From there, 7 years ago, I needed to forgive myself every day. And it worked. It softened me. Wrapping myself in compassion and understanding softened me. It enabled me to start being sweet and understanding to myself. It helped me see myself as such a hurt child. It made me soft with other people. Practicing self-forgiveness enabled me to forgive other people. And it taught me that forgiveness is not something you give to someone else. It's something you always give to yourself. If you feel angry, you feel wronged, you feel betrayed, there was an injustice, there's a grievance between you and another person, you can always choose to be compassionate. You can always choose to understand that there was no sin. You can always choose to acknowledge the hurt and pain and anger and betrayal or whatever it is, and you can also forgive them. You don't have to carry it. Forgiveness is just choosing to put it down, to put down the worrying and the tapping back in. It's like putting down those hard, heavy emotions and saying, I actually don't need to carry these anymore. Like, that happened, and it's wrapped in peace, and it's wrapped in compassion, and it's wrapped in understanding, and it's wrapped in love. And that's how I feel about it. So self-forgiveness and forgiveness for others also feels like rewriting the story of what this experience meant and what it means, right? What avoidance looks like is saying, okay, well, it wasn't that bad, or justifying the past to lessen your discomfort, like making excuses for what happened. It's like really not being honest. You're kind of gaslighting yourself, essentially. We're just like, okay, well, I don't really want to deal with this. And yeah, that's there. But, people are pretty good at compartmentalizing. I'm a terrible compartmentalizer. That's why I'm an integrated coach, because I don't have compartments. It's just all one thing. But a lot of us are really good at compartmentalizing and being like, okay, well, maybe I feel shame, but I'm not going to engage with it. It's just going to be somewhere else, and I'm going to ignore it. And, you can use the everything happens for a reason as a way to avoid things. Like, oh, well, everything happens for a reason, so I don't need to do any work around this. Like, it's no worries. Everything's just love and light. And, this thing that happened that really hurt my friend or whatever, I was like, no, I don't need to worry about that. It's like, well, I guess that's just what happens. We have to take responsibility for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our relationships, for the way we show up. Yeah. Well, we also avoid by just repeating our patterns and pretending like, we're not doing that. You can repeat your patterns and be aware and witness them and be actively healing them. That's what that looks like. You can still be in pattern repeat without it being resolved all the way, because that's part of how you heal it. If you're just doing the same thing over and over again and pretending like, oh yeah, this is different, I've moved on, I don't have any patterns, like I don't have anything to work on, I'm healed, that is what avoidance looks like. And that is the opposite of self-forgiveness, right? It's just denial. And we don't want to be in denial. We want to be in full throttle life. We are not in denial. We are in full grabbing life by the collar and being like, I am here to live you. Like, let's do this. Right. And really, if you keep using medicine, it's not going to allow you to avoid it. It's going to keep bringing things forward for you to connect with, to understand, to try to run away from, but you won't be able to. So it's much easier to just turn and face it. And when you have a large capacity to hold a lot in all of the areas of emotion, in all of the areas of the mental space, in all of the areas of your spiritual practices, your physical body is healthy and well, it's really great because you can do anything. You can really do anything. So sometimes the medicine will get you inside of the medicine experience. It will keep showing you something in a loop, in a repeat, which can create a lot of anxiety because it can be really painful when you get stuck in something. So one of the practices that I like to do when that starts to happen, if something is coming up and I'm trying to step away from it, or maybe I'm not ready. So you can always tell the medicine, I hear you, I see what is here, and I don't feel ready to connect and experience this right now. I don't feel that it's the right time to come into relationship with this thing. And just ask the medicine to pause, press pause and like, thank you for bringing this to my awareness. Let me sit with it for a little bit. Because sometimes things come up in the medicine experience that we're not ready for. We're not ready to face it. We're not ready to heal it. And it's okay. You don't have to do it in that moment if you don't feel that you're ready. And sometimes you don't feel you're ready, but you are ready. Not feeling ready and not like wanting to look at it ever are different things, right? But if you really feel genuinely like this isn't the right time for me, say that to the medicine. Tell the medicine how you're feeling. So it doesn't keep bringing it to you in a way that starts to make you feel anxious or worried or overwhelmed to create a difficult, challenging experience inside of the medicine. And just make a note like, okay, that's here. And I recognize, at least for me, and I know it's like this for lots of people, if there's something that the medicine is trying to show you, it will keep coming. You might have another journey a few months later, it's going to be there again, because it's when it arises, it's in your consciousness. It's coming from the subconscious, and the subconscious is saying, here, this is like, it's ready. And sometimes we are not aligned with that, and that's okay. But just knowing that it's normal to have loops, to things that come back, lessons that repeat. I've had like entire ayahuasca journeys where I'm like, you just told me all of this. And she's like, yeah, because you're not listening. So, it's good to ask yourself, like, am I avoiding putting my attention on this in my regular life? Is that why it keeps coming up? Like, what is the message? What is the lesson? What is the teaching? What is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach me? That is always such a good question to ask. And you can ask that of anything. You can ask it of a challenging experience. You can ask it of a feeling. You can ask your shame. What are you here to teach me? What's underneath you? What are you protecting? What are you hiding? What hurt are you hiding? You can ask, when did this happen? When did this begin to feel like guilt? When did this begin to feel like shame? Like, what is the depth? Like, explore the feeling a little bit, dig into it a little bit if you can, and also recognize being soft, being soft to yourself. You don't have to force it. You do not have to go in to yourself guns blazing. Like, we do not have to do it like that. There's no reason to do it like that. You can be gentle and soft. Sometimes just coming with your presence and your consciousness and doing a proverbial like sit like near whatever it is. Like, we're talking about like a dream space kind of, if you're on the medicine, or if you're meditating, or you're going within. Often I bring my awareness to things that are uncomfortable because they're in the body. For me, they're always in the body. Like, there's a thought process that goes on, and it's also connected to a feeling in my body. So I bring my awareness to wherever it is, and I just breathe with it. And I just hold the energy of like a soft smile, and I'm just here with you. And I just remind myself, I'm not going anywhere. I will never abandon you. You are with me. Like, people are always talking about like, oh, you got to kill your ego, like, to heal and, get out of the way. And I really just do not believe in that. I believe we are here to befriend the ego, to soften to be sweet, to be gentle, to be like super best friend power team with the ego. Because when you treat it like that, it stops needing to throw tantrums to get your attention, and it quiets on its own. It does not need to be killed and stabbed and put into submission and, tied up and gagged and thrown in the trunk. And then like, who's riding the horse? Who knows? The ego is your friend. The ego is there to protect and support you. And often it does stupid things because it's just trying to keep you safe. So when you become more aware of how your own spirit works and what's going on inside of you, you can meet yourself with more compassion and more love and more softness and more sweetness. And then that's when this deep need to forgive yourself for all the horrible things invites you to see it in a new way. And sometimes that new way is, looking into the divine mirror of yourself, right? So sometimes we can see ourselves from an outside perspective. We are removed from ourselves. We can look at ourselves, and sometimes people look at parts of themselves in different ways so that you're not as attached to it. And I can see where that would look like an ego death, but I just think it's a different way of understanding how the ego works. Sometimes I've seen myself as this blue light being I recognize as like my spiritual, the visualization of my spiritual body, my whole spirit. I have seen myself as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, different parts of myself from the past, different versions of myself from the past. And all of these are ways to see ourselves as the universe sees us, which is pure love, perfection, magic. We are just brilliant, sparkly beings of light that walk the earth. And I love the medicine because it lets you look in the mirror of yourself and see yourself, your truest expression, without all the baggage, without all the shame, without all the guilt, without all the pain, without all the stories of who you are and what has happened and who hurt you and who you hurt, and all of the narratives and stories that go on to describe you. The plant medicine lets you see yourself for who you actually are, which is much deeper, richer, older, more ancient, more powerful, more beautiful than anything that can just be in this body in this lifetime, right? I really think this feeling of forgiveness is a frequency. It's a vibration. And forgiveness is really compassion and love and understanding in one. It's not something that you do. It's something you allow. It's really a letting go of needing it to be wrong. Forgiveness is letting go of needing things to be wrong, to make yourself wrong for things. And it feels like unconditional love. It feels like unconditional acceptance. It feels like peace. So what happens after you forgive yourself, or after the need to forgive yourself dissolves into grace? How do you handle it? How do you move forward? How do you come back into a life where there's no guilt, a life full of lightness, a life full of bliss, of peace? Who are you if you are not carrying this guilt and this need to suffer and this need to punish yourself? If you decide to forgive yourself and be self-compassionate and self-loving, does that mean that what happened no longer matters? This is the paradox of healing, right? It's both and. It's often because of all of our conditioning, we think that if we don't feel guilty or we don't have like some pressure on us, that we won't grow and we won't heal. When you let go of the need to forgive yourself, it can be very disorienting. It can be very destabilizing. It can feel like an ego death, because who are you if you're no longer carrying guilt? Who are you without the shame? Who are you when you are liberated and free? Who are you without your suffering? Who are you without your problems? If you forgive yourself, if you dissolve the need for forgiveness, does that mean that these difficult things, these traumas that happen don't matter? Sometimes we can get to the place of forgiveness, but we have a really hard time accepting it into our daily lives and embracing the new identity and the new belief system and the new values that come when you stop crushing yourself with guilt and shame and punishment, right? So sometimes we have a limiting belief, which we've been talking a lot about lately. And the limiting belief is that we are sinful, we need to atone, and therefore we need to suffer. And we don't always know that we think we need to suffer, but we are so used to suffering. We have chosen so much suffering. We have been through so much suffering. If you decide to stop suffering and you stop punishing yourself and you stop criticizing yourself and you start being soft and sweet and loving and gentle and kind to yourself, where's the fuel for your achievement? Like, if you're not beating your ass, like, how are you gonna move forward? How are you gonna do stuff and create stuff and, go out and like kick ass in the world? If you let something go that was painful, are you betraying the people that you hurt? If you forgive yourself, does that mean you don't care about what happened to you? It's hard for us to accept that people deserve forgiveness even for doing terrible things. Because our society is very puritanical and they equate suffering to virtue. And that's just a false belief system. It's just a false program that we have to break. And those can be the most tricky things. These, especially when we don't know what the beliefs are, right? We just know that we have these like deep, crunchy feelings about all of this stuff. The endless need to strive for redemption. So many of the religions are based on penance and confession, and like the Catholics, alone, the sacrifice. Jesus got crucified. And we're told that Jesus was crucified because we are bad. We're told this when we're children. You're so bad. You see that man over there bleeding on the cross? He's hanging from a cross. You did that. That's fucked up, actually. And so we feel like we need to earn our life. We need to earn our existence. We don't deserve to be here. We don't deserve to take up space. Now in our society, there's all of these different, privileges that we rightly need to acknowledge, but also it creates more guilt. It creates more reasons why you don't deserve to live, and you're a terrible person, and you're ruining the environment, and your very existence is breaking everything on earth. It's really easy to take all of these beliefs and put them on your back and carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And when you decide you don't want to do that anymore, making that kind of transformation can feel really difficult and painful. So just acknowledging that. And if you don't forgive yourself, if you don't let go of this need to forgive yourself, you will continue to punish yourself through addictions, toxic relationships, dead-end jobs, careers that make you miserable, making yourself really small in every possible way, limiting beliefs, limiting choices, choosing things to crush and self-sabotage your own happiness because you don't believe you deserve it or you don't have the capacity to feel it. And the magic of plant medicine is it's like, here is all of your self-sabotage. Here is all of the ways that you keep yourself small. Here are all your limiting beliefs. Here's all the guilt. Here's all the shame. Here it is. What are you going to do about it? And that's why we're here every week talking about it, because it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And we're doing it. We're doing it right now. Just listening to this is activating you. It's activating your cells. It's activating these exit doors in the loop of unworthiness and spiritual stagnation to like pop open. And it's like, you can leave the perpetual cycle of seeking external validation through this door. You can give this to yourself. You do not need someone else to give this to you. You do not need to receive it from a priest or a pope, or you don't need permission. You don't need forgiveness from, your religion, you can get right with God in yourself. We do not have to become addicted to healing without allowing ourselves to heal. Like, you don't have to constantly be telling yourself that you're something that's broken that needs to be fixed. You can just be healed. You can be healed. You can be healed and know that you're always going to be learning more. There's always going to be more to learn. There's always going to be more to heal. There's always going to be more, but you can also be healed. You can do both of these at the same time. You can decide that you are enough, and you can rise into the frequency of forgiveness. You can break the ties that you have to regret. You can say, I regret nothing. You are attracting what you want in your life by your vibration. So the higher your vibration, the more aligned you will be with your highest self, your highest soul purpose, your highest mission, your highest service. And the higher that you are vibrating, the better it is for everyone. Because we are ultimately, yes, we are doing this for ourselves, but we are healing in service to the whole. We are healing in service to the collective. We are healing in service to humanity. And, right and wrong is like an illusion. Everything is unfolding as it should. We're not broken. We're not wrong. You can't do it wrong. We're just here learning and transforming and expanding and vibing and having fun, And the judge inside has to go. You don't have to keep living the same life. You can live a new life. And you don't have to stay addicted to guilt and suffering and pain and punishment. You can free yourself. You can let yourself go, and you can decide that there is no sin, because you were never wrong. You were only healing. Yeah. So embrace your unburdened self. Be unbothered and unburdened. And you don't have to identify with trauma. You don't have to carry the wound of your trauma with you for the rest of your life. You can honor that. You can forgive it. You can release it. You can heal it. And you can know that that happened to you and it created the person that you are today. You are free. You are free, and your only work is to remember that you're free. And that's what we're here to do, is to remember, right? We're here to remember. So that's how you forgive yourself. You can't do it wrong. So thanks for being here, family. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, go visit the website, learn about resonance, sinclairfleetwood.com. I offer one-on-one coaching. I have a group program called Nest. There are so many different ways to connect with me and work with me. Aside from this podcast, I have lots of free gifts on my website. If you're not on my email list, I highly recommend it. I send email love notes once a week. Thank you for being here. See you next time.